The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mind Garden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions.
It's us.
Look at this, the very last Livecast.
I know. Of this season, not forever.
Well, no, but of 2021.
Yeah. Of 2021. And also of season 3, which in and of itself is kind of cool that we made it through 3 seasons. I just think that's super cool.
You excited about that?
I am. Hi, Vicky. I am excited about it. And I'll tell you why. Because when I first got this idea in my head a year ago, because it was right around a year ago that I got the idea in my head, I didn't know what the heck I was going to do. And I was so confused. And I was like, I kind of want to do something with the paranormal. And I was playing around with my very horrible skills at making graphics. And other than that, I had no idea. And then, hi, Lisa. I hope you guys are all doing really well. And, then I said, why don't you do it with me? And you said
She meant
yes.
the podcast, by the way. The
podcast. Do the podcast with me. And Betsy, good evening to you. And the rest is history, because now it's been January will be our 1 year anniversary.
Very exciting.
It's really nice. It's really nice. And not only have you and I grown even closer through this, because we actually work together even more now, but we have, I think, set up this really cool space for everybody and really made it something that people enjoy, can laugh with, can, share their thoughts and opinions and stuff and really get into. And we have a group that is just made up of a bunch of wonderful people. There he is. Hi, Jason. So I'm just really happy with it.
And right now we're kind of discussing, what the second year will look like, what season 4 will look like. We've always been very big on changing and evolving and making things different and bringing new people in and trying to talk about things. Like you said, we started off being a paranormal podcast.
Right.
We did one tarot card reading night and it went crazy.
Yep.
And so then we kind of switched gears a little bit. We were doing 3-4 live casts a week. We were doing the podcast, and
I have to say that was kind of exhausting.
Kind of?
It was really exhausting. We were just excited about it, and we were like all about it and everything. And then we realized just how much work all of it really is. So I think we found our groove, though.
Yeah. And so, we're going to be in discussions on, where it's going to go and how it'll be and who's going to be involved and all that kind of stuff. So when we get closer to that, we'll share some of that. Maybe on our break, we'll even share some of the ideas we have.
Yeah. Just because we won't be having formal live casts, we may hop on here and there for a few minutes, kind of like surprise lives, and just maybe see how everybody's doing. And I like doing stuff like that. That just came to me.
I've got my Yule log up burning in the fireplace.
Look at that, the Yule log.
Yep. And I'll do this for you. Because beforehand, we're just about ready to go on, and she lets out this huge belch.
Oh, it wasn't huge. You couldn't even hear it. You said you couldn't hear it.
No, I was joking that I couldn't hear it. Of course I could hear it.
It wasn't
I've got
huge,
my headsets
though.
on.
I was just close to the mic. And so then I said, can you make yourself burp? Because I can't. I can't make myself burp.
I know that's really classy out there. I apologize for that. But this is what I have to deal with. I'm sitting here and all of a sudden just a big belch. And then she's like, did you hear that? Just before we were about to go on.
Oh.
This is what happens.
Like he hasn't done anything like that to me ever. Ever. You've done it before.
I'm too dainty for that. So.
Yeah, whatever.
Little hats off.
Sexy, all right.
Little hello to Lisa tonight. I don't want to
Yes.
give too much information, but she's got some ill people in her home.
Yep.
And so we're hoping that they're doing better. And I know Lisa's been kind of going crazy as the caretaker in the house, but
Yeah, definitely.
we love her very much. So
Yes, we love you, Lisa.
I will make the announcement now that our guest tonight, Eron, will not be with us.
Right.
Unfortunately, just before the podcast, he needed to pull out or cancel. And so he's not with us tonight on the live cast. So I apologize if you tuned in for that. We will definitely have him back to talk about the topics that he was going to be on with us about tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But one of the things he was going to talk about in general was going to be the holidays.
Yeah.
And, most of us, think of the holidays as Christmas, as Hanukkah, and stuff like that. And he was really going to talk more about the pagan holidays, which then kind of transformed into Christian holidays eventually, known as Yule and things of that nature. And so tonight, in lieu of that, I thought, what would be really cool is if we talked about some of our favorite holiday memories, traditions, because everybody's got different traditions in their family.
Yeah, everybody celebrates differently. Whether you celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah. I mean, Dave and I grew up celebrating Christmas. Dave grew up celebrating Hanukkah. Although I keep saying, like, he's the least Jewish person I probably know.
Do you guys celebrate Christmaka,
No.
something like that?
Well,
now, or
this
what?
is funny. So we
Hanukkah
don't
Mus?
really, when I was growing
That's
up.
it. Hanukkah Mus.
Hanukkah Mus. I like that one. He'd like that. It's funny. Okay, so when I was growing up, Christmas was big. My grandmother would get up at like 5 a.m. and cook this huge meal every single year. And there'd be literally like 20, 25 of us in the house because there were a bunch of kids. And sometimes my uncles and aunts would come over and my mother and father were there. And it was your typical, now we're mostly Lebanese, but it was sort of like on the equivalent of like the Italian Christmases where it was always loud and obnoxious. And there was always like an argument. Somebody would fight with somebody else by the end of the day. And it was usually my mother, and she would like tear off. She would get all of us in the car. Or if we were staying with my grandparents, because we spent an awful lot of time with my grandparents. They almost practically raised us, my brother Jason and I. So somebody would get in the car and tear off, and that was our Christmases. But it became, believe it or not, like a tradition. And that's what we did every year. And then when my grandmother passed, then my grandfather had a major stroke. He ended up in the nursing home. And so that piece of glue wasn't there anymore. And we didn't really celebrate over the years. So Christmas, even though it still means a lot to me, has sort of evolved over the years. And of course, I marry a Jewish man who grew up in a household that was Jewish, but they didn't go to temple and all that kind of stuff. So he knows a lot of the traditions and a lot of things. We have a menorah in the house that we light. We put it in the window every year and everything. I tried to get him to get me 8 gifts when we first started dating.
Of course you did.
That
of
went
course you
totally
did.
over. Yeah, that just never mind. That didn't happen. So we have a very quiet. Hi, Chris. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We have a very quiet Christmas every year, Dave and I. It's usually just Dave and I and my mother. She comes over. And, actually, my mother comes over on Christmas Eve. Dave and I are by ourselves on Christmas Day. We get Chinese food. That's
very Jewish. That's very Jewish.
And yes. I know that's the Jewish holiday coming in, and that's Hanukkah for you. And I look forward to it every year because being diabetic, I don't get to eat Chinese food except for on Christmas Day. That's when I allow myself to have Chinese food every year that I don't make myself. I make my own, but I know what ingredients are in it. So that's my tradition every year. And as for gifts, we started out, I would say the first probably 13 years we were together, we would get each other Christmas gifts. But what do you get for each other after you've been together that long that isn't stupid or, just little things? Because we, fortunately, we're not rich by any means, but we're comfortable. So we make enough money that if we want something, we just can buy it. So it's not like that big anticipation of something each year. So what we do is we just make a choice every year and we go either on a trip in December we'll go away for like 5 days somewhere warm, or we will buy something. Like one year we bought a new TV, like one of the big, I don't know, 55, 60-inch things. We bought one of those for the living room. So we sort of buy a together gift every year. Something that we can really enjoy. Hi, Dawn. Thanks for coming in tonight. And so that's our tradition. And I have a lot of weird memories from growing up at Christmas time. But one of the funniest to me now, I was just talking about this with my mom the other day when she came over for dinner, is I'll never forget the year my mother came to Christmas dinner with pneumonia. And if you know my mother, you know that my mother is always sick. She has COPD. She has all kinds of asthma and all kinds of things. And she decided she was still going to go to Christmas one year. And I was probably 12. And lo and behold, we had to go to the hospital in the ambulance.
Oh my gosh.
So on Christmas Day, I got my one and only ride in an ambulance, thanks to my mom. Merry Christmas to me. So
where is she tonight? She should have been on the podcast tonight.
She's home. I know. I think we're going to do a bonus episode with her over the
That'll
the
be
break.
A bonus, all right.
That'll be a bonus.
That'll pull people in.
She's a trip. So that was my most memorable, I think, unfortunately. But I remember the year that I figured out that Santa Claus was not real. And that was the year.
You just said that on the podcast.
I know, but we have adults. We have adults with us. But I'll never forget, I really wanted a canopy bed when I was little. I really wanted one bad. And I was sleeping one night, and no, I never did, Jason. I've never been in the paddy wagon, ever. I've always been good. My brothers and sisters have been in trouble. They're going to kill me. But I have never had a ride in the paddy wagon. So anyway, I really wanted this canopy bed. And I remember getting up one night in the middle of the night on Christmas Eve. And I went downstairs. And my parents were actually starting to get it because they were going to put it together. And, or at least put it in my room for me so I could wake up and see it.
Right.
And there it was. And so that's the year that I realized that, yeah, Santa just isn't what I thought he was. But that's probably one of my most memorable ones, too. But in a sweet way, because it's sort of like that coming of age idea. So just, yes, I'm sorry to break your heart. I'm sorry to break your heart. Oh, no. Why would that be, Jay? So that's pretty much my traditional Christmas. What do you do?
Well, I've actually got a couple of stories I thought I would share tonight. First off, just, as you get older, the traditions are less important.
Mm-hmm.
And even up until the point where my mom had passed away, we'd get together as a family on Christmas or Christmas Eve or something like that. But growing up, my family always celebrated on Christmas Eve. And it was the same thing every year. So I'm just going to start telling stories, and they may go off in different tangents. But one thing that would happen every year is Dawn, my sister, who is listening tonight, would have to try and find all the gifts. So Jason says, because Santa was sick of watching Unmentionables go on. Okay.
I love him.
So at any rate, Dawn would definitely have to search all the closets in the house to try and find the gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the routine every Christmas Eve. Early on in when I was young, we didn't go to church or anything like that on Christmas Eve. So we would go look at Christmas lights.
Mm-hmm.
And we would pile in the car at about 8:00 at night. They'd be like, get in the car. We're going. Let's go look at the lights, and everybody would get in the car except mom and dad. And sometimes it was just mom. It was like, come on, let's go. Come on, let's go. And we'd sit in the car for like 10, 15, 20 minutes. And we had no idea what was going on with mom and dad. But obviously, now that you've opened up the storybook and told everybody there's no Santa Claus, obviously they were getting the presents ready.
Right.
So we would go look at Christmas lights. And then when we got home, Santa had already been there. We could open up the gifts on Christmas Eve. So that was always fun. One year, Tammy, who's my cousin, who's been on the show a couple of times, her
Mhm.
father came over dressed as Santa Claus. I remember that very well. Dawn says her mom would have to go back up to the bath. Right, exactly.
I
For
think
some reason, mom had bowel movement problems at that point, right?
I think that's ingenious, though. That was really smart of them. Hi, Katie. Good evening. I think that was ingenious.
So we'd have our Christmas on Christmas Eve, and it was Christmas 1977. And we, the whole freaking routine as always. And we got to the last box. Now, my parents were building a new home, so we knew that within 6 months or so, we're going to be living in a new place. And we were living in a townhouse that did not allow pets, but we wanted a dog so bad.
Right.
So there was one big box that was left at the end, and it was written in Santa's handwriting, which was damn close to my mother's, really close to my mother's handwriting. And it said open last. So we opened it last.
Right.
And it had a dog chain and a collar and a brush and a toy in it or something like that.
Gosh.
Right. So we were upset because we're like, there's no fucking dog. It's just dog shit, So at any rate, there was a note inside or something that said, go look in the camper. We went camping and there was a camper. So we went out there and there was a little Springer Spaniel.
Oh.
And we named it Frosty, as Dawn said.
I love that story.
So that was the same Christmas, 1977, that I got my first tape recorder.
Oh. Yep.
So while Dawn and Vicky played with Frosty, I was on my tape recorder. I could care less about the dog. I was now a radio host with my tape recorder at the age of 7.
But now look, now you've got Winston and he's like the love of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a good Christmas. And then there was some hilarity that, the very first night, the dog ate some of our toys.
Of course.
I had something called, did you ever hear of the Sunshine Family Farm?
Yep, I did.
Got that for Christmas. Next day, all the arms were chewed off, or at least there were little bite holes in it because Frosty got a hold of it.
Aww.
But so that's one memory I remember. I'll do one more quick one, and then we got some more too. But one night, it was Christmas Eve, and we didn't live very close to our grandparents, probably about an hour out, maybe 45 minutes to an hour away. And it was really cold. It was just a deadly cold Wisconsin Christmas Eve. I don't know what year it was, but it was before 1977. And so we were getting ready to go, and we started driving out to Grandma's house, and the car broke down. And I don't remember much about it other than we ended up pulling into some random person's house, and they helped my dad fix the engine well enough that we could get to where we needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
That we could get to our grandmother's house. Don't turn around in the Wisconsin cold and get your family safe. You're still going to Grandma's house. So we did that. And I remember going to our aunt's house that night. And so it was always about the grandparents and the family members at Christmas time in our family, which was nice.
That reminds me of 2 little quick things. Number one, when you were talking about, was it your uncle who came and dressed up like Santa?
I guess it would be my cousin. Now that I think of it. Yeah.
I was really little, and I remember this
That's a Lisa Hale joke. Sorry.
When I was like young, but I still remember stuff. Like, I have the best long-term memory in the world, but I can't tell you like what I had for dinner last night. I write everything down. Everything is a list. But anyways, I remember probably being maybe 3 or 4 years old, and Santa Claus came to our apartment. We were living in an apartment, in like garden style apartments, and my grandparents were there. And probably it was just my brother Jason. Maybe my sister Heather was a baby at the time, because I was probably 3 or 4. And Santa Claus came. And I remember being so excited because Santa came. And as I got older, I would ask my parents about it. And this is actually kind of sweet. To this day, they will tell me that they had no idea who it was. That they didn't ask anybody to come and do it. They didn't pay anybody to come and be Santa Claus for me.
Great. Some bum on the street just showing up
at
right?
Sandy's house. Showed up at
quote
somebody's
unquote
house.
Little Sandy's house.
Little Sandy's house. And yeah, and so I was actually really cute when I was little. I was tiny when I was little. And so to this day, they will not divulge what they did. And I mean, we kind of guess, but they won't say it, which I think is very cute and very funny considering. So that's one story. And then the other one is about
maybe they just don't remember. Did you ever think about that? Because your mom is little, you know.
Well, my mom's wacky, but I don't know. I just think it's kind of funny. But the parents and the grandparents thing. This is not a Christmas, but this is a Thanksgiving. So I have to tell you what happened one year. This was probably the worst Thanksgiving that never happened. We lived about 40 minutes away from my grandparents at one point in my life. I was, I think, around maybe 10, 11 at the time. And we were going down on Thanksgiving, and like Wisconsin, New York, central New York in November can be, you'd never know what you're going to get. You could get a 60-degree day, but you could also get a 20-degree day. And it just happened to be sleeting and freezing rain on this Thanksgiving. And my mother was driving us down. My father didn't go. It was just us. My mother was driving us down there, and we were coming around the bend of this back road because living in the country, everything's a back road. We were taking a back road, and this man was backing out of his driveway, and his house was up on a little bit of a hill, an incline. And he was backing out, and there was just enough ice that by the time he saw us coming around the curve, he couldn't stop. So I was in the front seat of the car next to my mother, and he came down, sliding down, and he T-boned us on my side. And we flew over, we slid and then flew down into the ditch on our side. And they had to come and get us out and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And needless to say, we didn't make it to my grandparents' house that day. But I will say this, that was so traumatic for me that for many years, I didn't even want to drive. It scared me to be in a car.
I thought you were going to say you didn't want to celebrate Thanksgiving after that.
No, because, you know.
Little Sandy.
Yeah, little Sandy, but it did. It really scared me to drive. I didn't get my driver's license until later in my, when I was into my adult years. I finally got my license. But it was because of that. So that's probably like the worst Thanksgiving I ever had. But I have a lot of nice memories too.
If you're tuning in tonight, thanks for tuning in. Our guest that was planned for tonight, Eron Mazza, was not able to make it to the podcast tonight. He was going to talk about holiday traditions, not from the Christian standpoint, but more from the pagan standpoint, and then how that kind of transmuted into Christian celebrations and things like that. We're sorry he couldn't be here tonight. We apologize for that. But instead, we're talking about our family traditions at Christmas. And if you've got some to share, Jason shared one. He says, I remember getting a glowworm for Christmas that I really wanted. Then my uncle touched it after eating shrimp, and I was in tears because he touched it with his shrimp fingers and made it smell gross.
I love that story. I may just I don't know. I love that story. That's great. His shrimp fingers. Why? First of all, you shouldn't touch anything with shrimp fingers. I'm just saying. That's all I have to say on that.
I'll make a slide that says that.
Yeah, don't touch anything with shrimp fingers.
One more Christmas story from my family, and that was one of the last ones with my mom. It was kind of a special one, to be honest with you, because we found out in 2017 during the holiday season that my mom, who had lung cancer, her cancer had spread to her brain. And it was kind of a long process of finding out that she was not doing well and getting together to decorate cookies for the holiday season. And her actions were as though she had had a stroke, but then finding out it was actually cancer that had spread to her brain. And, you know, the process of getting her to the point where she could get back home again.
Right.
And she was able to get back home for her last Christmas. And it was special because my sister was able to come home and be there for that last Christmas. And then literally within a couple of weeks, she passed away. So for me, that was a very special Christmas, very sad. and really, in my mind, kind of the end of our traditional family Christmases.
Yep.
Again, as you grow up, things change. You
Yeah.
know, we weren't getting together necessarily on Christmas Eve anymore to open gifts, but we were getting together on Christmas Day, and there usually was some sort of big meal and blah blah blah. And it was always at my mom and dad's house. We tried to kind of converge there as a
Right.
way to quote unquote come home once a year or whatever. And so when that's gone, things change, and the holidays have a very different meaning. You know.
Yeah. It's interesting how there is usually that one or two people, one person usually who's like the glue.
Yeah, I think my
And
mom was that. I
yeah,
think my mom was that.
without a doubt, my grandmother was the glue for that. And then when she was gone, she died in 91. I was 20 when she passed, and she really was the glue. And when you lose that, it throws the whole dynamic off. And as much as things may be, I guess, annoying at times, there's always the fight at the end of the Christmas day and, all that kind of stuff. For me, it really threw it off because that's what you come to know. It's almost with love. Somebody's going to get mad at somebody. It's sort of like the Lebanese/Italian type of thing. Somebody's going to get mad at somebody. Somebody's going to be talking with their hands. Uh,
And remember, your mom's family's from the mob. You're just lucky somebody didn't have piano wire wrapped
exactly.
around their neck or something like
Wait
that.
until I'm gonna have to ask her if we ever had Turk over, because Turk would have been my grandfather's actually, on my grandfather's side, and my grandfather used to spend a lot of time with my aunts and uncles and all over in that part of town, that part of Utica. So I'm kind of curious. But I even have a nun in my family, my Aunt Helen, who her nun name, I don't know if that's the official word of it,
No, it
but
is. Nun
the
name
nun
is the one, yes. Nun
her
name is
nun
correct.
name is Sister Laurenita. She's like in her 90s now. I haven't seen her in years,
You
but
should go visit her.
well, we did one year. Wait till you hear this one. So my uncle and his ex-wife wanted to go to see my Aunt Helen. And of course, we always called her Aunt Helen. She was not Sister Laurenita. And she got that because she used, I'm not sure where the Nita comes from, but the Lauren was after she took my grandfather's name, which was Lawrence. And then whoever the Nita was, I'm not sure who that was, and put the two names together. And that's where she came up with Laurenita. But he says, let's go, let's go out. It's January. Let's go out to Niagara Falls, to Buffalo, and visit Yo Business. I love it. He says, let's go out to Niagara Falls, to Buffalo, and visit Aunt Helen. And it was just me and his ex-wife and him. And I said, sure. I was like 20 years old, 21 years old. I said, why not? So we go out, and it's literally in the evening. It's about, if you go on the thruway fast enough around here, you can probably get to Buffalo in like 3.5 hours. And it was freezing cold. So if it's 20 degrees here where I live, it's probably less than that, much less than that in Buffalo because of the Great Lakes,
Right.
and it's frigid there. And so we get there and we go and we surprise my aunt and we go pick her up. Now, this was 30 years ago. We go pick her up and she wants to go to Niagara Falls. So we said, okay. So by that time, she's a little bit senile. She's getting a little bit senile. She gives us the wrong directions. Long story short, I had never been to Niagara Falls in my life. My uncle didn't know where he was going. Nobody knew. She was supposed to know where we were going. We ended up on a sidewalk, literally driving on a sidewalk from her bad directions on how to go to see the falls. And there's people walking on the sidewalk because, of course, in Buffalo, it doesn't matter if it's minus 10 degrees. You're used to it. You walk.
Does anybody hear a problem with this story? Why would you listen to a nun? Why would you get directions from a nun? She
Well,
probably doesn't drive.
No, she doesn't. We learned our lesson. We did not listen to her again for anything, but we did get to see the falls, and it was actually beautiful because if you go to Niagara Falls in the wintertime, it's because of the water coming over, there's little islands at the top of the falls, and they have trees and foliage on them and stuff, and they actually get frozen. They get turned to ice because if it's windy, the water freezes onto the trees and stuff. And it's actually absolutely gorgeous. I know that most people like to go in the summer, but if you go in the wintertime, it's just absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, I've been there twice, and both times were in the winter. I'd like to go in the warm weather at some point in my life. But it was actually beautiful. But that's my nun story.
Sister Mary Frances story there. Chris says she has 4 brothers, and Christmas Eve was about ice cream and cookie cutout treats. Love that. She also
Oh,
says that her mom passed away too, and they light a candle for her each year.
that's sweet. That's wonderful.
Lisa says there was a Christmas my sister Heather was 4. Mom and grandma took her for Christmas shopping. I knew everything I got that year because Heather was. I hope you didn't want a book about a horse because you didn't get it. I hope you didn't want a Barbie head because you didn't get it. She knew everything. Very anticlimactic. Lisa's got some of the best stories.
That's
Betsy
great.
says she has a brother who got a tape recorder for Christmas. Told him to put it in the kitchen to record our parents, aunts, and uncles. We had a big Irish Catholic family, and the adults always were in there having
Oh,
cocktails
boy.
before Christmas dinner. As the kids, we learned some dirty jokes. I love that. I
That's
love that.
fantastic.
My family did that too, where the parents would play cards and they would be so loud.
Yes.
It's crazy. But my parents always, looking at my mom and dad at the end of their life, they were kind of reclusive to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
they were the life of the party prior to that. Everybody
Yeah.
came over to our house for Christmas. A couple of other quick Frosty stories. So Frosty's the dog that we got in 1977. And I've had good, for the most part, as an adult, I've had very good animals. Winston is the best dog. I don't think anybody's ever had a better dog in their life.
Right.
But we had Frosty. Frosty was a great dog, and she was a great hunter, but she was a little naughty. And one year, my mom would make, and I mean this, she would make hundreds of Christmas cookies, cut out
Right.
cookies, and then these wreath cookies that you make with cornflakes.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And you make them
Oh,
into
yeah.
wreaths and stuff
Yeah,
with
yeah.
marshmallow.
Yep.
So she made these and they were spread out on the counter. Well, we went someplace or did something and these were left laying out. Frosty ate every single one of them.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
she was, because you use green food coloring, she was shitting green for like a week.
Oh my gosh.
And then
Oh.
another year we lived out in the country so Frosty could go in and out. She was hungry, right, Dawn? She could come and go as she wanted to. We lived out in the country, so the door was always open for her to go in and out. And one day we came home from being gone, and every present that was under the tree was now laying out on the lawn, ripped open. And she even ate the bird seed. We had a bird at the time, and the dog ate the bird seed.
Oh no.
She was she could really be a naughty doggy.
Oh my gosh. Poor Frosty.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, it's we had before our Jack, who we lost in 2020. He was with us for 10 and a half years, but before that, she passed about a year and a half before Jack came home. We had a beautiful dog named Pretty, and she was like a black setter lab mix, but she was getting up there in age. She was about 15 when she passed, and that's pretty old for that size dog. And she had doggy dementia. And
Don't you have that too?
I
Isn't
don't
that what
have
you've got
doggy
that?
dementia.
I thought so, because you kind of
No.
bark once in a while.
No, be quiet. And so I'm gonna get it. So we went our honeymoon. We went to Maui for
You
our
and the
honeymoon.
dog, or you and
No, Dave and I.
okay.
Dave and I.
Just
They wouldn't
clarifying.
let her on the plane. And so my mother watched her. My mother stayed at our house and watched her while we were gone for a week. And when we came back, we found out that Pretty had decided that coffee grounds tasted really delicious.
Oh my gosh.
Coffee grounds. And luckily, she didn't eat a ton of it before my mother saw it, but we had to watch her and keep an eye on her and everything. I mean, she got into chocolate one time, and sometimes no matter what you do, they're going to find a way to do it. We had our garbage would actually be up on our counter because she would find a way to get into the garbage. no matter where it was. So we ended up having to put our garbage can on the count, like out in the far corner of the counter, so that she couldn't get it. So they'll find a way to get anything.
My mom had a rule in our house. Frosty was not able to leave the rug by the back door. She had to stay on that rug if she was going to be up in the house. But us kids would always take her into our bedrooms when mom wasn't home. Trisha says, I hosted Christmas Eve every year. I have a copy of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. It's about 3 feet tall. I read it every Christmas Eve for decades. The whole house goes silent. Adults and kids sitting on the floor. My family's much smaller now. But last year, my 13-year-old granddaughter told me that Christmas Eve is her absolute favorite. Talk about a joyful moment. Brought tears to my eyes. Love
That's
that.
wonderful. I love that too. What a great story that is. I think traditions are so important. And it really is a shame when traditions change, but I think that's the catalyst to sort of learn how to make your own new traditions. And even though it's not a huge family tradition, Dave and I have sort of formed this tradition over the years. My mother
goes
comes
out
over
to try and buy your gifts, and then they're not the right ones, so then you make them go back and get new ones.
Listen, that was Black Friday. That was
the wrong iPod. You go back out there.
He's never done that ever again for me, and I don't blame him. I wouldn't either.
Man. I think we should take up a collection for your husband.
He's fine, believe me. But I have to tell one quick thing though. It's so funny. Speaking about recording people, so I wish we had thought of that when we were kids, because all of my aunts and uncles, my grandfather had like 6 brothers and sisters, 7 brothers and sisters, and they were all pretty close. And so sometimes they come over to my grandparents' house once in a while. My Uncle Mike was just hands down my favorite. He was my great uncle. He was just amazing. One year he got me a guitar for Christmas, and I'll never forget that. There's a great picture of me standing next to him, and he got me that guitar. But a lot of times we'd all go over to their houses and play poker and, gin, rummy, and all that kind of stuff. And they drank, and, it was just so much fun. And I wish I had recordings of the conversations that as a kid I used to hear, because they weren't really dirty, but they were so freaking funny. They were so absolutely funny, and they just bring a smile to my face now when I think of it. And my aunt Helen, the nun, when she would
What's
come
her name?
home,
Sister Mary Frances? What is it?
Sister Laurenita.
Laurenita.
And when she would come home from Buffalo to visit on the holidays, they'd all get together and play cards. And I'm telling you, my Aunt Helen was a smoker and a drinker, and she was probably the least nunny person I have ever met in my life. But she was great, and she's given, I have a picture. I'll have to see if I can find the picture and show you guys. She is probably in her 90s now, so she's been a nun, a retired nun now, but for over like 70 years. And I remember going to her apartment in Buffalo, and they truly do live extremely minimalist, like extremely. She had a little twin size bed that was up against a wall. It was like one of those one room apartments that she would stay in. There was like a little kitchenette and the bed, and it was just bare.
But again, you guys took her word for how to get to the Niagara Falls.
Never again. It was like some kind of goat bridge or what, I don't know what they call it. And we were like, we can't go over that bridge. She's like, just go over that bridge. But it was really a footbridge. I don't know how it didn't break. And then we ended up on the sidewalk, and there's these benches that sit in front of the big railings in front of the falls, and people can sit there and watch the falls. And literally, we're driving past them. There's people sitting on them, and we're driving past them, and we were just trying to get out of there. Oh, my God. It was a nightmare. But it was a funny memory now that I tell the story and think about it. It's been
Justin
years.
got a popple for Christmas. Anybody remember what a popple is?
Popple. It sounds familiar.
Do you remember kabangers or
Kabangers.
Whatever they're called.
Yeah. Yes, those were cool.
They were great until you knocked yourself out with them.
Oh my God. I can't tell you how many times I literally hurt myself with those things.
Lawn
but they
jarts?
were fun.
Lawn jarts? I mean,
yes.
killing people at the summer family picnic. Nothing wrong with that.
You know what? Sometimes we played a lot of bocce ball. Because even though we were Lebanese and Italian is very close. So like my,
okay.
it is. My uncles,
I'm gonna
Uh,
get a T-shirt that says that for you. Lebanese and Italian is pretty close.
well, a lot of my Lebanese aunts would be married to Italian men. So we'd get my Italian uncles who would come over and they'd play bocce ball in the backyard. And so you grow up or we go to my uncle, like my uncle Nicky and Aunt Joni. They lived in Rome, the city next to us. And we go over to their house for cookouts and we'd play bocce ball, and you kind of learn how to play bocce ball. I haven't played since I was probably 10, but those were just the kind of things that we used to do. We'd play bocce ball. So, but we would kind of harm each other. The kids would, because we'd end up throwing them instead of rolling them the way, doing the things we were supposed to be doing. So, a lot of injury going on.
My kind of a cool story. We would go to various family members and stuff like that during those couple of days. And I remember we'd always go to my cousin's house and mom and dad were there. And again, like you said, everybody would get together. There'd be some drinking and people there was just constant laughter. And for whatever reason, I mean, we were lucky as kids that our family had a good.
I'm trying to see if I can do this.
That's working out great.
I know.
I can't see it.
I'm trying to. I can't believe I can't get anything.
Back it up a little bit. Back. There you go. A little bit more. No.
See, it's too bright.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. There, I'm very close.
That's a popple?
Now. That's a popple.
Good
there you go.
God.
There you go.
How old is he? Like 16 now or something?
Justin?
Yeah, well, that just doesn't look like anything that would have been out when I was younger.
I don't know. Justin doesn't look as old as we are. Justin, how old are you? Justin, how old are you? That will explain a lot.
First time. So at any rate, he's 41.
41? Well,
still 10 years out of my bracket.
Yeah, you are older than me.
So at any rate, families together, and my mom is telling the story about how my mom would drag my dad out fishing on the boat.
Right.
Dad hated fishing. And whether he would admit it or not, he went for two reasons. Number one, so he wouldn't have to listen to my mom bitch at him about it. And second of all, I think he actually secretly likes spending time with my mom, but don't tell anybody that.
No, you're not allowed.
So, they were out fishing and she was, doing her own hook, own worms, all that kind of stuff. And she was eating pretzels out of a bag. So she asked my dad, "You want some pretzels?" And he goes, "No, not with those wormy fingers. I'm not eating that shit." My dad was very particular about food. So at any rate, apparently they went fishing and everything was fine. Then like a week or two later, my mom sees him. He's in the kitchen eating pretzels out of a bag, and it happens to be the bag that she was.
Ooh.
So she tells this story at Christmas. The 20 or 30 people in the room are roaring with laughter, and my dad's sitting there going, grossed out by the fact that he ate pretzels with worm mud in them.
That's gross, though. I love to fish, but I don't like the wormy stuff or anything. It's kind of interesting that your dad didn't like to fish, but your mom did. That's kind of a different.
Well, no, my mom was kind of like, she enjoyed fishing. She hunted along with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
I think growing up, my mom's family fished and did that stuff a lot to save money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as kids, we ate, we ate mashed potatoes with dandelion weeds in them. So we would eat heart and tongue, all that stuff. I mean, it was just gross.
Did you know what you were eating at the time?
Well, we didn't know that it was as weird as it was. Squirrel, rabbit, pheasant. We didn't have like turkey until I was older. We always had goose or duck.
Right. Did you guys spend a lot of time, because obviously where you're from, did you spend a lot of time on the water?
My mom did. I mean, I went out fishing. I'm not a water person, and
Right.
we weren't so close to the water that we would go out all the time. But she had a boat and all that kind of stuff as she got
Mhm.
older. So,
I think that's cool. Are we gonna now? We're coming out in June for vacation. Are we get? You said now. Last time we were there, you said something about if you guys were here longer, we could have taken the cruise on the water. Are we gonna do that?
I don't remember what cruise that is.
I don't know. You
Cruise
said
on the
something about
water.
some sort of cruise on the. Were you lying to me?
I don't believe I said anything about a cruise on the water.
You did. I'll watch. I'll find it, and then I'll be like, "This is probably what
There's
you're talking
probably a
about."
cruise on the water. So let me tell you and this isn't a Christmas story, but it's been requested to tell
Oh,
you
I
the
see.
tomato jam story.
Okay.
This is a good one. So, growing up, you eat what your parents give you. Like I said, we ate some weird shit.
Right.
Um, so one day I'm having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And we lived in townhouses, so there was other families that we would hang with and other kids. It was very cool. Jason says the Washington Island Ferry
Is that
is the
it?
one. Yeah, but
Oh, okay.
that's yeah. So at any rate, I'm out having the sandwich. And a friend is also having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And for whatever reason, we both opened them up.
Okay.
And my jam is kind of this reddish orange color with seeds in it. And his jam is purple. And he goes,
Right.
I said, what do you got there? He goes, well, it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Well, it doesn't look like mine. So I said, well, you want to taste it? So I tasted it and I was in heaven. I was in flippin' heaven because I found out that day that my mom made, Dawn says Beverly Hillbillies. No shit.
That's what I was laughing at.
Possum. My mom made jelly out of tomatoes. So it was peanut butter and tomato jelly sandwiches.
I don't even know.
Oh, you don't want to know.
Oh.
It was not the yummiest stuff.
But you were used to it, right?
I was used to it. But then when you have regular grape jelly,
Then
you never
there's
want to
no
go
going
back. It's like my other sister, Vicky, always says, once you have butter, you never go back to margarine. And we always
Yeah.
had margarine growing up. So
We
the
did
first time
too.
you go out and have butter, it's like, oh, my Lord,
Yep.
this is heaven.
Yep.
So,
That's funny. See, that's true though. I
ugh.
just can't even imagine what the taste was like, the combination.
Then geese stuffed with, I love my mom. She knows I do. But we'd have geese and it was stuffed with she made a meat dressing, not a bread dressing. She would not eat bread dressing if you gave it to her. But it was a meat stuffing and what were called bullets. Now, basically it was flour that you clumped them into a ball and you boiled it. I don't remember if there was potato in that or not. I think it was just flour balls that you boiled and then you would put gravy over them and they were called bullets because boiled. Yeah. But Dawn, there was no potatoes in that. It was flour and whatever, right? I think. My mom would fix me bologna and jelly sandwiches. Oh my God, Katie.
Oh my gosh. Let's
Oh
talk
my
about some
God.
of this stuff. Oh my God.
My mom made me a bologna sandwich every day for school with nothing on it but bread and a slice of bologna. They were gummy, riced potatoes.
Oh God.
Hola.
So my mother was never a cook. She was never a baker. She was never a cook at all. So basically, most of my life that was spent with my parents, because when I was growing up, my brother and I, the two oldest, would spend every weekend, every holiday break, every summer break with my grandparents. It was sort of like unofficial, it was just, there were more opportunities at the time with them. And it was tough growing up. So we kind of would stay with them quite often. And so when we were home, my mother only made two things basically in the world: Kraft macaroni and cheese out of the box and pork chops. And I was just talking about this with her yesterday when she came over for dinner, because that's all we would eat was pork chops and macaroni and cheese out of the box. I mean, you'd sprinkle in some cream corn here and there, or things that just needed to be heated up. But we didn't have any bullets, thank goodness. We didn't have goose. But, my grandmother used Crisco all the time. Yep. My grandmother used Crisco for everything. And we used oleo. She used to call margarine oleo. That was what we grew up with. So, but I had a lot of Kraft macaroni and cheese and pork chops when I was growing up.
I think it's funny. We get a lot of people whose grandparents were good cooks, but their parents were not.
And it's true. My grandmother would make, now my grandfather liked certain things. He only liked certain things. So we would have the same things, but we would have enough of the same things that it was enough of a variety. It wasn't the same thing all the time. But she'd always make kielbasa with kraut. There was always
God,
always pasta on Sundays. It was always spaghetti and meatballs on Sundays, every Sunday. And we'd have homemade macaroni and cheese, which I still make to this day. And it was all very traditional things. We would have pork chops. We would have baked potatoes. We would have all kinds of stuff like that. But it was all the same kind of stuff. But my grandmother, boy, could she cook. She was
Dawn,
very good.
I was just going to bring this up. So the worst thing in the world as a child, there were two things that were horrible. Is hearing the pressure cooker going. Because in those days, you'd hear it go, right?
Yep.
And you knew what that meant. And then there was this aroma that came with it. My mom would make pig's feet with sauerkraut.
Oh.
And just to smell that, it was such, again, Mom, I love you, but what a letdown. Like, please, can we just go to McDonald's? Please, let's go to McDonald's. Nope. Run, Forrest, run. I mean, she would take me out. There was a place in West Bend that was right next to a McDonald's. It was called Randy's. And we would go, and every once in a while, she'd stop and get a burger, a small burger, a regular burger, a small fry, and a drink. And we would share it. We would share a burger, a small fry, and a drink. But that was like heaven. What? We're going to stop at McDonald's? Oh, my Lord.
Yep. Split.
It was bad. It was bad.
These memories, I haven't thought of this stuff in years and years. I remember when we got our first microwave. I was probably 8, 9, maybe. And it was this huge honking thing. But let me tell you, the microwave was like amazing. And they had those little Marie Callender. We used to do the TV dinners in the oven. Remember those?
Right. Yep. Oh yeah.
And we'd have those once in a while, like just, you'd have one of those for lunch or something as a kid. But then like we took a step up with a microwave, because then you could do the Marie Callender's, like the mac and cheese and all that kind of stuff. And that was like such a huge deal. But I remember we used to go grocery shopping with her, and we would popcorn the old fashioned way. We get the Jiffy Pop, and you put it over the stove, and you'd shake it, and it would expand. And it was that in and of itself was magical for us. And yes, Salisbury steak. You could get Salisbury steak. The microwaves were big deal.
Yeah, I don't remember ever being able to do that stuff. Like my mom she made a pretty good lasagna, considering it was my mom. In the microwave, not in the oven.
Oh.
She never baked a lasagna in her life, but she would make a pretty good one in the microwave. What was the other thing? Oh my God. See, now my dad was very particular too. He loved roast potatoes, pork chop potatoes, chicken on the grill potatoes. I mean, that's just the way my dad was. My mom would buy La Choy. Chop, flippin', suey.
Kind of reminds me of my mom.
I don't know why I thought about it tonight, but I was getting ready to come here, and I thought about that La Choy chop suey, and then the jingle came to mind, and my stomach started to growl because it was the worst stuff in the world.
Oh. I remember that my mother used to get that a lot. She used to eat that all the time. Yeah. Yeah, you had to be so careful with Jiffy Pop because it would burn so easily.
My mom did know how to can. She made just tons of stewed tomatoes and jams and beans and pickles and all that kind of stuff.
Something I've always wanted to do. So I think that's we're getting some interesting comments from the peanut gallery.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's what
Not
this
at
is all
all.
about.
Not at all.
Again, if you tuned in tonight for Eron, we apologize. He was not able to make it to our podcast tonight, our live cast. And so we thought, he was going to talk about holiday traditions, where it all kind of started. And I thought, well, let's talk about ours. Everybody's kind of got their own traditional stories about the holidays. One of the things I miss so much, and I want to do it this year, hard candy. I think they call it rock candy, but I'm not sure. It's the one that they roll out and they kind of clip off. And if you get it, there's little designs in it.
Oh, like ribbon candy?
Ribbon candy, kind of like that.
Yeah, I love ribbon candy.
We always had a dish of ribbon candy at Christmas time.
I think everybody growing up in like the 60s and 70s, and maybe a little bit the 80s, always had a dish. My grandmother had a white sort of milk, that milkware dishes that she used to have one of those on the living room table, coffee table, and it always had ribbon candy in it during the holidays. I think that was a tradition in of itself for a lot of homes.
I know that I threw up La Choy. I know I did. Because it tasted the same going down as it did coming up.
Oh, it was awful.
And the other thing my mom would do would make us eat raw sandwiches, because it's kind of a thing in Wisconsin where they call it raw dog. It's raw hamburger sandwiches for New Year's. And so we ate that a lot.
I will say this, being Lebanese, growing up with a Lebanese family, and we weren't full Lebanese, but
I know Lebanese is a lot like Italian. We heard it 8 times tonight.
But there is a food, a Mediterranean Assyrian food called kibinaya. And kibinaya, now kibi is Mediterranean, it's Lebanese, it's everything, but kibinaya is raw. Usually it's pork. It can be pork, lamb. It can be a mixture. But it literally is seasoned raw meat.
Yeah.
And a lot of Lebanese people eat it. And every time we take my grandfather out to dinner, we take him, anywhere like that, we'd go. He loves Lebanese food. So we'd go we have a couple of restaurants around here. And every single time he'd get kibinai. I wouldn't even try it. And he used to say, oh, well, people have been eating this for hundreds of years and nobody ever died from it. I said, how do you know that, Grandpa? But first of all, he loved it. And my mother will eat kibinai. My mother usually gets kibi if we go out somewhere, or if we do Mediterranean takeout. But he just loved it. Something about, I don't know, raw meat. I couldn't eat raw meat.
I can't do sushi.
I don't do sushi either.
I can't do it.
I don't. Never.
I mean,
I'll
have a raw. I'll have a cannibal sandwich before I have sushi. That's for sure.
I just never have. Well, I don't eat fish anyway. I don't eat any fish. But yeah. So.
Well, this was an interesting livecast.
It was totally kind of unexpected and unplanned for, but I had a great time with it. I hope you guys did too. Just kind of reminiscing a lot of memories that I haven't thought about in years. So, and I didn't know your mom made such amazing food back in the day.
God love her. She tried.
Yep.
And she did. And there were some things that she was okay with. And as she got older, like when she would come to my house or go to my sister's house, I think she knew what good food tasted like. She just didn't know how to make it. That's all.
But you know what? She was very innovative because a lot of the people up here where I am, hunting is huge here. Hunting is a big deal. And a lot of them, that's how they get through the winter, is by getting a deer or 2 deer or whatever it happens to be. And So that's big sustenance for them. And they use every part of the deer in some way each and every year when they go hunting. So, I mean, your mom did your thing. That's how people up here, they save a lot of money by doing
I
that.
know. I know. It's
I
just
don't eat it. I don't eat venison.
when you're happy that there's fish sticks on the menu for the night and some horrible French fries that are, and when that's good, because everything else you've had for the week is pretty gross. It's kind of scary. So
yeah, I know, right?
Well, this is our final live cast for the season. We'll be back after the holidays. And again, we're working on revamping some stuff, all that. We do have another podcast coming out. We've got 2 podcasts yet coming out this season.
Right.
So keep on the lookout for that on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We've got 2 more yet this season.
Right.
And then we'll have 3 seasons under our belt.
Yep.
And we're going to change the name of the podcast to Charlie's Angels.
That's right. That's right. And we have a big month coming up in January, because not only will we be kicking off season 4 of Livecast and Audiocasts, but we're celebrating our 1-year anniversary, and we're going to have some cool contests and events and different things going on. So make sure that you guys watch for that. And also be sure to join our group, Stay Weirdos, Friends of the Sandy, and Toddcast.
She's belching.
I did not.
She's belching. She's thinking about that LaChoy going down and coming up.
Oh, just don't even do that to me. That's so gross. And my mother loved that. Stay Weirdos, Friends of the Sandy, and Toddcast. Make sure you join that, because the people who are in our group are the people who, as a thank you, will be eligible for the prizes and giveaways and all the special stuff we're doing. So just make sure that you join our group if you haven't already. Make sure that you leave us a review either on our Sandy and Toddcast Facebook page or on any of the platforms where you find our audio cast, because if you do, you will be in the running for some really cool prizes as well. So do that right now. So don't forget to do it. Make sure you do it for us.
If we don't talk to you again, don't get a chance to see you. Thanks for everything for the year. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Happy Yule. Happy New Year. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Whatever you celebrate, just celebrate. And let's look forward to an even better 2022.
Yeah. Celebrate with love. We got through almost 2 years now of this pandemic. We're on our way out. Let's keep our fingers crossed that we're on our way out and on to an amazing 2022. And thank you guys so much for all of your support this year and your love and allowing us to do something that we really love to do. So thank you.
Bye.
Bye.